Well, we tried to find you some interesting architecture in Calgary, and it was tough, but we're up in Royal Oak, and we did it. And we tried to get you a Tamron 28-75 2.8, even though they're very new, and well, thanks to Amplis Canada and Ted, we did it. And we tried to get you a Sony A7R III to test this lens on, and we tried, and well, we just couldn't do it. Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. Chris Nicholas here from DPReview, and today we have a brand new 28-75 2.8 to have a look at. And although I didn't get an A7R III, I did get a camera. It'll be the next best thing. Well, we got a Sony A7R II, and that's okay because it's the same sensor and it's certainly going to demand a lot from this Tamron 28-75. And you know, my goal with this lens today is really just to give you an overview of our impressions on it, what we like, what we don't like, some of the comments that many of the DPReview staff have made testing this lens as well. And don't worry, there's a lot of stuff coming out soon where we're going to have very detailed lens tests and comparisons on DPReview.com. But what I want to show you today is just things that you can see in video that you just can't really get off an MTF chart. From the very start, Sony suffered a lot of criticism for not having a very extensive line of lenses, and it was well deserved at the beginning. And when their full frame line of lenses came out, again, there wasn't a lot to play with. The main lens was a 24-70 f4 that was sort of co-partner with Zeiss, and frankly, it was a little bit disappointing, although it was small and compact. On top of that, Zeiss is pretty much the only manufacturer at that point that made any sort of third-party lenses, and again, they were all prime lenses. So then what happens? Well, they come out with the G Master series of lens, which is excellent, certainly competes with anything Canon or Nikon made, but is also incredibly expensive and physically huge. And you know, a lot of photographers out there were kind of complaining. They're saying, well, why would I sell all my heavy Nikon and Canon gear just to buy a Sony mirrorless full frame and put heavy and expensive Sony lenses on there? And although there's a lot of other benefits to mirrorless than just size and weight, that was certainly a fair argument. We were also kind of wondering in the industry, where are the third-party manufacturers? Yeah, we got lenses for the APS cameras, but why no full-frame love? As it exists now, you know, Sigma has plans to release full-frame lenses now in primes, but it looks like there are lenses with extensions on the body, and they're certainly not what we would call light and compact. Well, we do finally have the Tamron 28-75 2.8, and the first thing that strikes you is that it's got a 2.8 aperture. The second thing that strikes you, it's actually really small and compact. Now, you're not just saving size and weight, you're saving a big chunk of cash as well, and that's probably the biggest benefit of this lens, but there are going to be some compromises, and the first one of those starts with build quality. This is a very lightweight lens, absolutely, and it's a very thin diameter lens as well. That's part of what Tamron's trying to go for, but you get some of that lightweight with a very plasticky housing. I mean, you can see molding marks. It is fairly cheap looking. It does have a nice metal mounting ring, and it does have a rubber gasket on there. I don't think this lens is going to be amazingly well sealed, but the cameras aren't either, to be honest. On top of that, the zoom ring, nice and smooth. Actually, I was impressed by that. I don't feel it's going to creep. The manual focus is fairly smooth as well. It does not have a linear transmission, so Jordan will hate it. And at the end of this lens, we do have a very cheap and chintzy looking plastic hood. Also missing on here, no AF/MF button. The lens does not have image stabilization. Let's get that out right off the top. And you know, the G Master lenses usually give you a custom button here. That's going to be missing as well. I do feel that having the zoom up front and then the manual focus behind, if you're using a lot of Sony lenses besides this lens, that's going to be backwards for you and it's going to throw you off a couple times. You get used to it. I normally really like the 28mm aesthetic. It's actually one of my favorite focal lengths, but having a 24mm can be very handy. That extra 4mm does make a difference in certain situations, like when I'm not able to go into the floor any more than I already am. You know, so I didn't think I'd miss those 4mm, but I do. And I mean, there's gonna be certain compromises that have to be made with this lens design. And if you have an ultra-wide lens that you can use to complement this lens, it won't be such a big deal. But if this is your only lens you're gonna go with for shooting or traveling or something, just consider that. If you like to shoot a lot of wide angle, this might be an issue for you. Okay, so it's getting windy, but the sun has decided to come out just for a little bit, peeking through the clouds. So I thought I'd just do some sun shots and see how the lens is handling flare. And I'd say overall, this lens, in our minimal ability to test out here, is kind of middle of the road. You know, zoom lenses are always going to have an issue with flare, but in this case, we are getting some ghosting. You can see an example of it here, and I could see how in certain situations, it could wreck your shot. The sun's quite high right now. It's probably not as bad. If the sun gets lower to the horizon, you might start to see flare become a real issue. So that's something to keep in mind. But otherwise, you know, we were shooting this building, it's kind of cool, but we're gonna head to another part of Alberta, which is really beautiful and fairly close by. So we'll join you there next. All right, so we've left the city to shoot some of our beautiful Alberta backyard, and I think we're gonna have a lot of neat details here, an interesting test for the close-up capabilities of this lens. So I'm actually really enjoying the close-up capability of this lens, especially if you're just going out with the day and only one lens available to you. At the 75mm range, you get good working distance and an impressive 1:4 macro reproduction. And if you go to 28mm, you have to get physically close, but you're gonna get just below 1:3, which is just fantastic. You know, the only thing I would say here, we don't have VC built into the lens. Vibration control, if it worked in conjunction with the IBIS, would be a nice feature, but it would make the lens more expensive and bulkier. And again, I'm using an R2. A lot of the new cameras are all gonna be image stabilized within the body, so it's not that big a deal. Now again, we're gonna have a lot of more extensive testing coming out on the website, but you know, my general overview of using the lens, this is what I'd say image quality wise that you wanna look out for. So first off, chromatic aberration, not really a big thing, it's minimal and all the profiles take care of it now. Vignetting on the other hand is pretty severe. I feel that this lens's image circle is probably just barely covering the full frame sensor. So vignetting, although curable, is certainly gonna be there. Okay, so are we saying this lens is soft? Not at all, not even close. In fact, it's impressively sharp. A lot of people are asking, is this sharp enough for the A7 III? And I'd say it's plenty sharp enough for the A7R III. No problems at all. But there is one caveat. So first off, it's in the corners. At the wide angle range though, this lens is very impressive. At 28mm, it's good at 2.8 and those corners sharpen up really nice at 4 and 5.6. So if you're a landscape shooter shooting wide, you're gonna love it, no problems. But when you go to the telephoto range, I think wedding photographers are gonna love this, but if you're doing telephoto landscapes where the corner is important, keep in mind shooting wide open at the long range is gonna be somewhat disappointing. All right, so let's talk about the bokeh of the Tamron 28-75. And if I have any apprehension, it's because, of course, this is a very subjective thing. So this is how Chris Nichols finds it. First off, Tamron has worked very hard on its latest lenses, including this one, to get rid of the onion rings that they used to have. So very nice, even bokeh. However, I personally find that at the longer end of the range, you get strong outlines around the bokeh. And I find that that actually really attracts attention to them. You might like it, it's got character. You might find it distracting. Whether you like it or not is really going to subjectively depend on what you prefer. So my big takeaways from this lens are this. First off, I think it's giving you the smaller and lighter build and design that we've kind of been hoping for. This was the mirrorless dream, you know, to have this smaller, lighter kit. And this as a 2.8 lens certainly feels compact and lightweight. The second thing that's amazing about this is the value for dollar, and it really does compete very favorably against a lot of lenses more expensive than it. Take, for example, the Sony 24-70 f4 with the Zeiss badge on it. More expensive lens than the Tamron, never a great optical performer, and really the only two advantages it has, OSS, image stabilization in there, but a lot of the new bodies have IBIS built in, and it does give you that 24mm focal length, and that might be a deal breaker, but it might not. Really, I can't think of many situations where I wouldn't prefer the Tamron heavily over that lens. The lens that I think really competes with the Tamron, the Sony 24-105. That's an f4 lens, granted, but optically fantastic, and it does give you the better focal length range on the wide and telephoto side. Still though, I think the Tamron optically performs very well and competes very nicely for the size and weight. I think one of the big problems out there on the internet is a lot of people are comparing this lens against the Sony 24-70 2.8 G Master, and I assume that's because of the 2.8 aperture. And this is a really amazing thing that Tamron's done, but those two lenses don't compete. The Sony is going to outclass this lens in terms of build quality, optical performance. I mean, it's just in a totally different price point and build quality class. I think though, if you're looking for a lens that's really compact and portable and still gives you that light, the Tamron makes a lot of sense, especially at its price point. And on a brand new A7 III, this lens would be a no-brainer for a high quality but portable system. Now, don't take my word for it. Please check out sample galleries on DPReview.com. There's the 24-70 f4 on there, the 24-105, the 24-72.8, and now this brand new Tamron 28-75. And also, don't forget that we have full lab tests coming up on these lenses. So you'll get all the charts, resolution, and proper testing in the lab. That's coming soon. You're going to want to check that out. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, please. Contact us on Twitter, follow our Instagram feeds, and comment below. Let us know if you have any comments or questions. We love responding to those. Until next time, we'll see you soon.